Raman Langai from Level 3 Games Design course, the first year, and I am here to show you a display of the pre-production work that I have done for my FMP up until this point. Okay, so let's get started. The pre-production is one folder in the FMP in where you basically implement your own skills to the test, and by building upon it to make a variety of different kinds of assets, annotating alongside it, and practicing with a countless amount of processes. It's vital if you would want to get far in this major project. So, to begin with, here is my first slideshow of where I talked about on what I was planning to put into production. I made my intentions clear by stating that I would be doing up to 5 different assets and that all of them will be canon to my final animation, which is my final prototype by the end of this project. So, 2 characters, 1 art prop, 1 background art, and a final storyboard to top it all off. I also said um, that the app I will be preferably going with will be Procreate, mostly because I'm more experienced of using it rather than something like Clip Studio, in which I only got introduced to at the beginning of the FMP. But my biggest concern before I started the production of my assets was that I wanted to make sure that I used the most fitting and appropriate set of hue for my assets. Since I was aiming for a cel shaded art style, my wish was to use quite warm colors so that it could fit the aesthetic look of both my asset and could be extremely beneficial for my final animation. That's why I used reference to those mood board images in which I did for my secondary research. Like over here, it's unique art styles in video games. Over here, I collected like how do you say, like so many video game images that has quite a bright and warm um, color used in that art style. Like for example, you could see the Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, Dragon Ball, Dragon Quest, and Okami. Over here, it's the same thing but with cartoons and animes. This was also extremely helpful because when I start my animation, I could always return back to these images and see how how the art style is used in these different animes. Like over here, these two are completely different from something like these three. This is because these had like more of a darker tone to it. That's why the art style was more shadowed and darker. Over here, the art style is more brighter for the viewers to see, and it's more modern. But moving on, here was my main protagonist character design that was going to be playing a big role in my animation and so on. I was really thorough of this iteration since I did my absolute best to give my character a warm hue to go with. And the reason to it is so when I start my final animation, it will make my life a whole lot easier to put a numerous amount of close-up detail and outlining over through every certain bits. So that's why I went with such simplistic colors to begin with. Like you see on the far right corner of the color palette, every color I used for my design, I organized all of them and lined it up over here and stacked it all so that when I start my animation, I could always go back and remind myself of which colors I used. So I make sure that I never lose them at all, like along the way. Also, one last thing of this. Um, I did like different kinds of angles for my design, like the front view and close eye level, and this is because this will be included in my animation. So if I only included one pose of my character, which is this one, I mean, it's the main pose, it would, to be honest, it will be a bit difficult to like try drawing everything last minute in my animation without any without memorizing any reference poses. So that's why I did this to save some time. And of course, for my secondary research, or from my secondary research, these were some mood board images I used, and I used reference to these to help me get that initial idea so that I could draw these designs myself primarily. Same goes of my enemy concept design. The process of doing this wasn't really time consuming, but at first I was lacking a bit of creative ideas on how I would want the design iteration to turn out like, but I managed to overcome that creative problem with help to my various mood board images, which was a positive aspect inside. Like, to be honest, I didn't wanted my enemy concept to look how do you put it, like a human, like this one, for example. I wanted it to like base off some fantasy alien or something. That's why I was mainly being creative with this. And also, since my enemy is only gonna be playing like only 2 to 3 seconds at most in my final animation, I just used like between 1 to 3 colors for it, because all of the main attention was towards my um, main protagonist. That's why. And now carrying on with my art prop asset. With this one, I was really being imaginative uh, with it. The most inspiration I took from it was from the movie Spider-Man 2, like the antagonist in that movie and game. Um, the enemy has, mechanical arms, in which I, took inspiration from, and I wanted to like imagine in my mind something, real creative and original. That's why I came up with something like this. Like these are the long forearms. This is the base. The things in which my enemy concept will like stick on the sides, on the shoulders, and then on the hips. So yeah, I was being creative with it, and same with my other two designs. I drew like different angles as well to show the different points of views, and same with the color palette. Now carrying on. Now with my background art. Um, First, so I know that my aim was to make associated art style, using associated art style for my final 2D animation, but I wanted to try things out differently. So that's why, um, in my mood board for my secondary research, I collected like more a darker aesthetic um, views of background art, and I know that I'm supposed to be, being bright with my animation, just using warm colors, but I wanted to do something unique. So that's why I used a very more like dark background of color. Here are some buildings. I also used a bit of light and dark colors, basically contrast. Over here, this is where my character will be sitting, in which I will get to of my final storyboard idea. But yeah, the process of this didn't take too long. At most, it took me like about 2 to 3 minutes or so. And also, I tried to be realistic with it, and of course, I didn't add too much detail into it. Otherwise, it will be even more difficult to animate, because my my aim is to make at least my aim is to make my animation last for about 10 seconds at most. Like first when I did my SWOT report, I wanted my animation to like last for about 15 to 30 seconds, but like looking back, that's gonna take too long. And with my time shortage in the FMP, I just I just couldn't do it, so I had to limit it. I had no choice whatsoever. And finally, with my final storyboard idea. So this one is going to be a long one to talk about. So with my background art, see over here, first first picture over here. Then I did a close-up view. Like I remember in one of my secondary research, I watched this tutorial video covering the basis of how to animate storyboards and how to make it attractive and entertaining for the viewers to like see in front of their eyes. I basically changed each angle so that it could interest the viewers and not make my storyboard idea, which will be implemented into animation at a later stage, of course. Um, will not look plain and boring. But yeah, I think I did a pretty good job of this. I mean, sure, it took long, but good things take time. Over here, I did a little hand drawing of when my character um, will be like moving his hand a bit, fingers as well. I did a close-up eye view to like being real creative with my work. This is something that I used for my enemy concept design, which will be explained in my animation. Like I can't really express it into words, but like I'll try my best. It's like a portal, let's say. This is where the mechanical arm would appear, which is from this one, of course. And then my character and my enemy design will just have like a short face off. It will probably just last for about 1 to 2 seconds at most. I cannot afford to do any more than that, because I have a lot of um, stuff to do to like polish up and everything. Um, Also, one last thing I wanted to mention. When I was in the making of doing this storyboard, I used strong reference to this amazing Spider-Man graphic novel in which I own myself. The thing is, I did talk about this in my secondary research, however, but it's actually really beneficial and it was more of an advantage for me than a disadvantage. And this is because if you look through the different pages in the graphic novel, it has like a variety of different colors, saturation of hue, like different sceneries, and a lot of action going on at once. And the purpose of this graphic novel is to satisfy the viewer and make them like go wow into every page. So yeah, without this, the storyboard will be quite difficult to do so. But yeah, here is my pre-production. I know that in my main presentation whatsoever, I haven't annotated it, but I wanted to like save it for this voice record, as I was afraid that I didn't have quite enough time to begin with. That's why. So yeah, here is my pre-production, and at the end of the day, I am quite proud of what I managed to accomplish with this. I mean, I did do this in like a span of, let's say, 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, sure, it is still quite a lot of time, but like, I did, I mean, sometimes during the FMP, I managed my time well, but also not manage my time well. So it was kind of like a mixed about. But this was good.